Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into an emergency episode of the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm Justin Phillips, and with me, as always, is the man who's been following the Hannah Dugan case like a hawk on court TV, Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
And so Hannah Dugan has been found guilty of one of the two counts she was charged with in the case regarding the obstruction of the arrest of Eduardo Flores-Ruiz. So, for giving everyone a little bit of background, so Hannah Dugan's of course, an elected judge in Milwaukee County Circuit Court, and on April 18th, 2025, Eduardo Flores-Ruiz is an undocumented immigrant facing misdemeanor domestic abuse, battery charges appeared in her courtroom. Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, agents arrived in Milwaukee County Courthouse with a warrant to arrest him for deportation and illegal re-entry. So, for those who don't know, Eduardo Flores-Ruiz is a Mexican national who first entered the United States illegally in January of 2013 at age 18. U.S. Border Patrol apprehended and deported him shortly after via expedited removal. He illegally re-entered the United States days later without permission and settled in Wisconsin. So why was he in Hannah Dugan's courtroom in the first place? So on March 12th, 2025, Milwaukee police arrested him following a domestic dispute at his West Valete Street residence. He allegedly struck his roommate about 30 times with a closed fist, choked him briefly, and hit two women who intervened, one in the forehead and arm, shoving her to the floor. Authorities charged him with 3 counts of misdemeanor battery with domestic abuse modifiers. And during booking, his fingerprints matched federal records, alerting ICE to his prior deportation, illegal re-entry. That's how he landed in Hannah Dugan's courtroom. So Shadow, do you want to drop a little hot take about the case right away?
Well, not necessarily a hot take, but the trial was the defense only called 4 witnesses at the very end, 45 minutes of testimony. Okay. Yep. The prosecution, I think, called 19 over the course of 3 days. And now that's not like uncommon for the prosecution to do, be longer than the defense. And I'm not necessarily a lawyer or anything, so I don't. But, people are saying these things online, and I take it with a little bit of truth, a little bit of salt. So, but when you look at the, obviously it's federal court, so there is no court TV. This isn't the Rittenhouse trial where you can watch every single question. You can watch Binger question Rittenhouse. You can watch Lunchbox question Rittenhouse. And everything. The emotion. But this, you basically have to get tidbits from reporters. Every single little minute detail is conveyed. And it can be kind of hard. I mean, words on a page don't have all the tone and, the pointedness of a question. So you can only take so much. But when you look at the prosecution, you can definitely see that there's no emotion. They try to distance themselves. That you can have opinions on ICE, but realize that wrongdoing was done.
Yes.
And that was the key to it. Whereas the defense, throughout the prosecution, but mainly in their defense, they harped on that this is political, that there's maybe something, extra here. I think in the closing argument, they said, who knows how far this goes up the chain? Basically saying, well, is this coming directly from Trump? So they kind of peppered that in everywhere. And, again, not a lawyer, but if you're trying to use emotion, maybe your facts aren't all on your side. And I rightly called out, and this is not like some expert legal opinion, but the entire case hinges on the jury door. And if you watched or listened to our last podcast, we did a little ASMR portion about that. But anyway, so the point being that the jury door, where the illegal alien and his lawyer were essentially in the courtroom, and the Judge Dugan was made aware of, ICE agents in the hallway, and she went to kind of confront those ICE agents, told them to go see the chief judge down the hallway. Then she went back to her courtroom and she had a conversation with her court reporter, who she probably knows pretty well, and they had a whispered conversation that was caught on the audio. And the ADA, the Milwaukee County ADA, testified ADA Bus was her name. That essentially this door, that they went out this door, and that this door is never used. It's only used for the jury. It's locked to the public. And I believe Hannah Dugan's clerk or deputy clerk even attested that he had only seen her use it when she was sick. So basically, the prosecution established very well through multiple witnesses that this door was not used by the public, very seldomly used. And they even had audio of Dugan saying, "I'll take the heat. Go down the stairs. I'll take the heat."
That seems to indicate that she knew what she was doing was at least suspect.
Yes. But now that would be clear cut enough. But the problem is the defense or the state public defender and the illegal went out the wrong door, at least according to the prosecution, the wrong door. In this hallway, there was a stairwell and a door that went out to the hallway where the ICE agents were. They went out the door where the ICE agents were. So the defense said, well, why would they, why would they send them out to where the ICE agents were?
Right. They got him anyways. No harm, no foul, I think was kind
exactly
of the pitch.
Exactly. And so, but again, the one of the star witnesses, which was again the reporter, the court reporter that Hannah Dugan had this conversation with, was the last witness called by the prosecution. And the prosecution asked them essentially, is there a right or a wrong door? And I'm paraphrasing and skipping through a lot of questions, but essentially they got her to admit that there was a wrong door to go in. Of the two doors, one of them's right, one of them's wrong. And they asked her, well, which one's the wrong door? And she said, the one that leads out to the hallway where ICE was at. Meaning the intention was for them to be directed down the hallway. Now, we also learned the state public defender was new, had only been in the courtroom a number of times. I think she came from a different county, so she didn't maybe know the layout. And she said, she even attested that she didn't know what was on the other side of that door. So she had no idea. She was kind of going blind. So despite the lawyer and the illegal going out the wrong door, the intent was at least proven that this was an intent to evade ICE. So that's kind of a crash course on the process. There was a lot more to it.
Yeah. So a couple other things in there that really stood out to me was the way that Judge Dugan confronted the agents in the hallway after she had sent him down the Ruiz down that hallway. So she met with these ICE or the FBI agents and an ICE agent in the hallway wearing her judge robes, which is a way to convey authority, which judges aren't supposed to do outside of their courtroom. I think you wear the robes in the courtroom because that's where you have authority. She goes out there. She drags another Milwaukee County judge with her. I think that was Christella Surveya. Yeah. So
I don't necessarily know how to say the name, but I think
but she was one of the prosecution's witness because she testified that judges should not assist defendants in evading arrest and exposing. And she expressed shock over Dugan's actions and was worried that she was going to be dragged into this, that she was going to be found, an accessory, if you will, to this. So there was, and that was one of the judges that was called. I think there was another judge that was called as well, but it was that it was the conversation, and then the FBI and ICE agents testified towards the angry tone that Dugan took when confronting and questioning the agents and directing them then to the chief judge's office amid the policy discussions about arrests. So that's how Flores-Ruiz, that's how she bought time for Flores-Ruiz to try to escape.
Well, and another thing that I wanted to say about Judge Surveya, and I apologize if I'm saying her name wrong, because she was, although the last witness is usually your most important, which was the clerk or the court reporter that said, hey, which door do they need to go down? Do you want me to do it? And then that's when Dugan said, I'll take the heat. The Judge Surveya was probably the star witness. And I know I've been watching a lot of the news reporting on it, where when when it sounds, and I can't remember if it happened before or after Dugan confronted, it had been before she confronted the ICE agents. She went to Judge Cervea's courtroom through the back door, through this back hallway, basically motioned her to come over. She attested that Judge Dugan told her nothing of what they were going to do. And basically, just roped her into this. And she kind of basically threw Dugan under the bus completely and said, I had no idea what she was doing here. And I'm assuming Dugan wanted another, a friend and another robe to be like, hey, this is our authority. Go talk to the chief judge, as again, trying to get them to move along essentially. And so that was huge. And obviously, as a judge, you have some credibility. Whether I disagree with their decisions or not, the judge has some credibility. So basically, the judge that was right there with the ICE agents, right there, basically threw Dugan under the bus and even said, for the record, yes, I don't think that judges should be helping defendants evade arrest. She wasn't prompted. I don't think she was totally prompted to say that. She kind of threw that into the ether. And again, we're getting this via reporting from journalists. So when I saw that, I was like, what? Was that like just context that the journalists reported? No, she actually said that. So, and another thing that was really, obviously, when the prosecution is going, you feel like, oh, there's no way the prosecution loses this. And one of the redirects was interesting regarding the ADA, the assistant district attorney, Buss, who was on the stand for the prosecution. The defense basically said, because she was the one that attested that, oh, no one uses this door, yada, yada, yada. And the defense said, here, I'll read it. The defense is asking Buss if she was having a hard week. And she said yes, but wasn't sure if it had any impact on her clarity. So yes, she's having a hard week at work. Therefore, maybe she's misremembering things, or maybe her judgment's just clouded.
When the defense is throwing that at the wall to seeing if it sticks, things are a struggle for them. So cover the defense a little bit, because it happened. It's so quick. I was so surprised. So the defense called 4 witnesses that I think you said was in 45 minutes. So 2 were fellow Milwaukee County judges, including Katie Kegel, whose email to colleagues about interactions with immigration officials was shown, a public defender, and former Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, who was a longtime friend and vouched for her honesty and character. So I think, again, you're kind of desperate if you're going for a character witness, and that character witness is former Mayor Tom Barrett. I can't see that strategy.
Gosh.
Someone with a bit more legal expertise might be able to explain why they pulled him in there. But so they did 45 minutes, and then
it was over.
Jury, so then the jury deliberated. So a little bit about the jury. There's 7 men, five women from various counties in eastern Wisconsin. Began deliberations today after the prosecution rested on Wednesday. Closing arguments concluded Thursday morning. About 2.5 hours in, they posed questions to the court, including clarification on ICE procedures, such as who needs to be notified for courthouse arrests, and whether Dugan needs specific knowledge of Flores-Ruiz's identity or warrant details to be guilty of obstruction. These inquiries focused on Dugan's intent and awareness, which were central to the obstruction charge. So over 6 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered a split verdict. Meaning they found Hannah Dugan guilty on the felony obstruction charge, which is the bigger one, but not guilty on the misdemeanor concealment charge. Suggests that they conclude that Dugan's actions intentionally impeded federal agents' proceedings, which was supported by video, audio, witness accounts, but not rise to the level of actively hiding Ruiz.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I just want to go back to before we depart from it, Again, I watch a lot of newscasters, a lot of lawyers, prosecutors, not saying I'm an expert now, but hearing what they were saying, the first 3 defense witnesses were largely forgettable. And we didn't sink the case, but I don't know if it necessarily helped. Tom Barrett. For anyone that doesn't know, former Milwaukee mayor, then ran for governor, 1, 2, 3?
Thrice failed governor candidate.
Yeah, so he's Big
and as a
political.
reward, he spent the past couple of years of the Biden administration as the ambassador to the Duchy of Luxembourg.
Yeah, so not exactly a geopolitical force, more of a vacation in the Hamptons situation.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to grace us with his presence at the on the stand, and he was the character witness where, he said, "Oh, I've known Dugan for 50 years. I've known her since she was like 11 or something."
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it was said in some of this analysis was, it not necessarily as a character witness for Dugan, but basically a way of saying, here's a political person in Tom Barrett. He supports Dugan, so I should maybe support Dugan.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really like, oh, Tom Barrett's going to give this great piece about Hannah Dugan or something. It was more kind of a way to drop the political red meat in front of maybe one or two jurors to say, Tom Barrett, I kind of liked him. Yeah, good. As the some of the media personality said, moderate liberal. I was like, okay,
mm-hmm.
hilarious. But so that was kind of maybe the strategy. It was that you make this case political and hope that one or two jurors just hold out, and maybe Tom Barrett is kind of that ace in the hole, quote unquote. And I don't think it really worked though, based off of the result that we have. Now it's funny enough that I believe this was it. I mean, what's today? Today's the 18th still.
18th, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I originally thought that this was going to be maybe longer, but I
truly thought we'd go into like maybe even close to Christmas.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of hard to predict, but I said my money is still on a split decision of guilty of the misdemeanor and not guilty of the felony.
Right.
I just thought the evidence was so clear cut that here's this hallway. No one is allowed in this hallway. Mm-hmm. Yet now there's more to that on why maybe that not guilty and then the guilty, they kind of flip-flopped essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But kind of everything started, to go awry once things started being deliberated. It started about 2:30 this afternoon, Central Time. Mm-hmm. And the jury, there was a number of knocks on the door, and they wanted clarification they wanted to see an exhibit, mm-hmm. which was ICE's official policy, okay,
yep.
On these arrests. And so I think they got that, and that was all fine and good. And it kind of threw myself, and I know a lot of other people, off because it was hard. I don't think it was ever mentioned really, or at least not mentioned in great detail. So, people are making the assumption, well, is this just one juror that he's like, nope, we need to look at this one thing. And maybe everyone's trying to convince that one person, or maybe this is just the jury in a long list of things to go through. But it turns out, so they went through that, but then later there was another question by the jury regarding ruling about having to know the identity of the subject of the warrant. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of flipped the case on its head for a little bit, where it says here, Judge Edelman rules that Judge Dugan needed to know the identity of the subject of the warrant to obstruct him.
Yeah. So I think it's good to mention that Judge Edelman's a far left judge. He's an old liberal. And I think at that point, looking at some of your tweets, as well as SCOTUS Wire was tweeting, I feel like Edelman had tried to put his finger on the scale there.
Yeah, perhaps a little bit. And I'm not going to pretend to know the law backwards and forwards. Mm-hmm. But this is a very consequential decision. And it's this is half the reason why we have the ruling that we did. I think if he doesn't make this ruling, they probably convict her of both counts, or they certainly convict her of the count of concealing, because it was never the prosecution never brought up the warrant having his name on it, or the fact that Hannah Dugan ever would have known that Eduardo Flores-Ruiz even was on Dugan's mind as the one that they were after. Now, apparently in the audio that was played during court, this illegals case was moved up. So once Dugan realized that there was ice outside, she moved his case up, and there were other people for other cases in the courtroom that were like surprised and kind of wondering, like, what happened to my case? I thought we were up next, or something along those lines. And Dugan kind of rushed his proceedings along, and then I think someone said the exact quote was something like, "Is there anyone else that needs to go?" That, and it was kind of an insinuation, like, "Hey, is there anyone else that might need to hurry up their proceedings because ice is outside?" Now, she didn't say that. That's a heavy assumption. I think it's a fair assumption you can make. But again, I mean, we are talking about a seasoned judge. She knows the law. She knows probably what she can and can't say. That's not an indictment of her innocence on that. But you can make the inference that she was maybe saying, anyone that might be illegal, let's get you through.
Yep.
And so I can understand why they didn't convict her on the concealment charge, but then Judge Lynn Edelman offered another ruling that basically, here, let me try to find that here as we're doing this live. But there seemed to be, okay, here we go. Judge Edelman comes up with an answer to another jury question. It was a separate one, very similar, that to know of the pending proceeding, the defendant needed to have sufficient knowledge about the nature of the proceeding, not necessarily the person. And this was on the felony count. Mm-hmm. So the defendant needed to have sufficient knowledge about the nature of the proceeding, which is much more broad than like the individual person. So when you look at that, I think it plainly shows that Judge Edelman's jury instructions basically give you the decision that you have.
Yep.
Who knows what would be the decision if that those questions aren't asked, but I guess that's all hearsay. That's all water under the bridge. Now we now have official, Hannah Dugan's been convicted of a felony.
Yeah, and so I'm going to read the statement on behalf of Judge Dugan that was put out by her legal team. So they said, while we are disappointed in today's outcome, the failure of the prosecution to secure convictions on both counts demonstrates the opportunity we have to clear Judge Dugan's name and show she did nothing wrong in this matter. We have planned for this potential outcome, and our defense of Judge Dugan is just beginning. This trial required considerable resources to prepare for, and the public support of Judge Dugan's defense fund is critical as we prepare for the next phase of the defense, which I said quickly, I'm surprised there wasn't an Act Blue account link in that, because that defense, again, 45 minutes, taking a lot of resources for 45 minutes, just it doesn't strike me as enthusiastic as, so.
Yeah, well, and so this is a legal thing that I am going to totally butcher, and I wish we could bring someone on with more expertise on this, but so she's been convicted, that's not going to change. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been read like into the record by the judge. Apparently, because of this split decision, the defense is arguing that there's no way that they could convict on the more severe account and acquit or not guilty on the lesser account. Mm-hmm. And apparently, there's some legal process where the judge could basically throw out the jury's decision. Now, apparently that's very rare, but I mean, this is,
we just saw something like that happen in one of the Minnesota fraud cases. I'm just not drawing those exact comparisons, but there was one, I believe it was one of the Minnesota fraud cases where the judge was like, they handed back the guilty charge and she said, actually, no. So, it has happened.
It has happened, and not saying that it will, but this isn't, this is not over. By any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that it's more likely than over. Now, and the reason I say that is now if we look back to, I don't have a date on this, but let's see, Hannah Dugan, this all happened April 18th of this year, so this would have probably in April as well. But there was a headline, Wisconsin Republicans pledge to act if judge is convicted. And then reading from the excerpt, Judge Hannah Dugan was released on her own recognizance after being taken into custody on Friday in her courtroom. Assembly Speaker Robin Voss told WisPolitics that Should the charges result in a conviction, we will act. Majority Leader Tyler August said legislative Republicans will, quote, act decisively if these serious allegations are confirmed. Per the Washington Post, the legislature has the authority to remove a state judge.
Yep. So we're talking impeachment.
Yep. So that, I mean, I don't know how. I mean, sure, I guess she could go through the process, but I mean, if those things are true, I'm assuming, yeah, an impeachment would come down the line, or some kind of, the removal process, because it is a felony. And I don't know if Dugan wants to potentially, I don't know if she would resign, try to avoid the spectacle.
Yeah, that's a good question. See how far she's going to take it. And, my understanding is a felony of this nature could land her up to 5 years in prison. I am skeptical and highly doubtful she sees the inside of a jail cell at all.
I have a better chance of winning the $1.5 billion lottery
I'm with you.
Than her seeing four walls.
She was still, at this point, convicted of a felony.
Yep. So I mean, that's still a fact. And so obviously it's we're almost here to Christmas, so I don't know if we're going to get any action just right off the rip. But I do imagine that something would happen. And so I don't think this is just I don't think we're done here quite just yet. So that's kind of the status, I think, up to this point. And we'll have to see how how the legislature ends up responding.
Mm-hmm. So I think with that, we're going to call it here. I want to thank everyone who tuned in. We're going to drop this as a podcast episode tomorrow, completely uncut. So look for it there. If you missed something, you want to go back. But yeah, as we found out, after a short deliberation and a short trial, Judge Hannah Dugan has been found guilty of a felony for disrupting the arrest of Eduardo Flores-Ruiz by federal officials.
All right, take care, guys.
Good night.